The C-130's ramp lowered with a hydraulic sigh, vomiting a wave of heat and dust into the cabin. Sergeant Anna Reisner cinched the strap of her duffel bag, her face impassive. The air outside smelled of diesel, baked earth, and the faint, metallic tang of anxiety that clung to every forward operating base. FOB Nightingale. According to the briefing, it was a model outpost, a beacon of stability in a region that had long forgotten the meaning of the word. A young lieutenant with a jawline sharper than his tactical awareness trotted toward her, clipboard in hand. Sergeant Reisner?
I'm Lieutenant Evans.
Colonel Matsonet said.
Welcome to Nightingale. His handshake was firm, a practiced gesture of authority that didn't quite reach his eyes. Sir, Reisner said. Her voice was low, devoid of inflection. The colonel's in a command briefing, Evans continued, leading her toward a sand-colored prefab building. He asked me to get you situated. He knows you're here for the readiness inspection. Just try to stay out of the way. We're in the middle of a major hearts and minds push. Very high-vis. Reisner simply nodded. She'd heard it all before. Every commander had a pet project, a career-defining initiative that made everything else, like routine inspections of weapons maintenance and perimeter security, feel like a distraction. Colonel Madsen caught up with them outside the Tactical Operations Center. He was a man built like a fireplug, with a booming voice that seemed to take up all the available oxygen. He glanced at Reisner's uniform, at the simple sergeant stripes on her sleeve, and his eyes skated right over her. She was part of the institutional furniture, a necessary annoyance from a higher headquarters. Sergeant, he barked, not breaking stride. Glad you could make it. Evans will show you your hole. I want your report on my desk by Friday. Focus on the positives. We're running a tight ship here. Morale is high. Readiness is at 98%. Just confirm the numbers so we can all get back to the real work. He clapped Evans on the shoulder and disappeared into the TOC, leaving the lingering impression that he had already forgotten her name. Dismissal. It was a familiar cloak, and she wore it comfortably. It allowed her to see. Her hole was a windowless closet tacked onto the back of the supply depot, furnished with a folding table and a metal chair that wobbled. The air was stale, thick with the smell of cardboard and cleaning solvent. Evans gestured vaguely. Everything you need should be in the system. Let me know if you need, pens or something. He left, eager to get back to the orbit of real importance. Reisner dropped her bag. The thud was a dull, final sound in the quiet space. For a moment, she stood perfectly still, letting the base settle around her. She didn't log into the computer. She didn't open a single file. Instead, she listened. She heard the predictable rumble of a generator, the rhythmic clank of a loose grate on the main walkway, the distant, tinny beat of music from the enlisted barracks. Predictable. All of it. She spent the first day walking. Her official reason was to get the lay of the land for her inspection. Her actual purpose was to map the base in her mind, not as a collection of buildings and personnel, but as a series of firing problems. She stood at the perimeter, her eyes tracing the lines of the concertina wire. She noted the guard towers, positioned for optimal view of the main road, but with massive blind spots in the gullies and rock formations to the northeast. A sniper's Valhalla. She watched the patrols. They left from Gate Alpha at the top of every even-numbered hour, followed the same clockwise route, and took their breaks at the same shaded overlook. You could set a watch by them. You could also set a mortar tube. In the armory, she ran a hand over the receiver of an M110 semi-automatic sniper system. The armorer, a young specialist, puffed his chest out. Cleanest rifle on the FOB, Sergeant. We follow the regs to the letter. Reisner pulled the bolt carrier group. She sniffed it. What CLP are you using? Whatever they send us, Sergeant. You have carbon buildup behind the gas rings, she said, her voice flat. It'll cause a failure to eject after 20 rounds in these conditions. You need to strip it with a proper solvent, not just wipe it down. She handed the bolt back to the stunned specialist. Check your other 762 platforms. It's a common problem with this lot of lubricant. She left him staring at the metal in his hand as if seeing it for the first time. Her observations were quiet, her interactions minimal. But some people were trained to see past the surface. Master Sergeant Cole ran the logistics hub, a sprawling depot of containers and pallets. He was a lifer, with creases around his eyes that had been etched by decades of deployments. He watched Reisner walk the fence line, stopping not at the gates but at the seemingly random, insignificant points in between. He saw her pause by the comms array, her head tilted as if listening to something no one else could hear. He found her in the mess hall that evening. She was sitting alone, methodically eating, her focus entirely on her tray. "Sergeant Reisner," Cole said, setting his own tray down across from her. She looked up, her gaze steady. "Master Sergeant, find everything you need?" he asked. It wasn't small talk. "I find what's there," she replied. Cole leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. "This place runs on metrics, Sergeant. Numbers that look good on a slide for the general. The colonel is a true believer in his own reports." "Reports don't stop bullets," Reisner said. A flicker of understanding passed between them. "No, they don't," Cole said. "I saw you looking at the northeast perimeter. The Wadi. We've had trackers report movement out there for weeks. Goes into the patrol logs, but it never makes it into the colonel's morning brief. It's unverified atmospheric data. Atmospherics can kill you," she noted. "That they can," Cole agreed. He pushed a small, heavy-duty Pelican case across the table. "Brought you something. Your issued inspection kit is a joke. This has a proper set of tools, a laser rangefinder, and a Kestrel weather meter. Might help you write a more accurate report." Reisner looked at the case, then at him. For the first time, a hint of something other than blank professionalism showed in her eyes. It was a quiet acknowledgement. "Thank you, Master Sergeant." "Just Cole," he said. "You see things. Most people who come through here just see what they're told to." The next morning, Reisner filed a preliminary report. It was 4 pages long, written in precise technical language. It detailed 16 critical vulnerabilities, ranking them by probability and potential impact. She highlighted the predictable patrol schedules, the unobserved dead space to the northeast, the compromised fields of fire from towers 2 and 3, and the systemic maintenance issue with the 762 platforms. She recommended immediate changes to patrol timings, the establishment of a dedicated overwatch position on the depot roof, and a full, supervised cleaning of all designated marksman rifles. She submitted it electronically and walked a hard copy to the TOC herself. Lieutenant Evans took it from her with a tight, dismissive smile. "I'll make sure the colonel sees it, Sergeant. But like I said, he's very busy." An hour later, she was summoned. Colonel Madsen was standing in the center of the TOC, the report held between his thumb and forefinger as if it were a piece of contaminated refuse. Evans stood beside him, a smug look on his face. "Sergeant," Madsen began, his voice dangerously calm, "I have read your assessment, and I have to say I'm disappointed. I asked you to verify our readiness, not to indulge in hypotheticals and second-guess the command decisions of officers with decades of combat experience." "Sir, the data is based on direct observation," Reisner said, her tone unwavering. "Your data suggests my men are incompetent and my base is insecure," Madsen snapped, his composure cracking. "It suggests that our 98% readiness metric is a lie. Is that what you're saying? The metric doesn't account for tactical predictability or equipment fouling that falls within maintenance parameters but outside of combat effectiveness, sir." Madsen tossed the report onto his desk. "This is theoretical nonsense. Alarmism. This area is stable because I made it stable. My engagement with local leaders, my projects. That is what creates security. Not hiding behind sandbags and worrying about dead space." He pointed a thick finger at her. "You are a box checker, a functionary. Your job is to fill out your forms. You are not here to be a tactical advisor. Do you understand me?" "Yes, sir," she said. "Good," he grunted. "Now rewrite this. Focus on the things we're doing right. I want a positive report, Sergeant. One that reflects the reality of the situation here, not your paranoid fantasies. She took the report from his desk. Understood, sir. As she walked out, she heard Evans mutter to the colonel, Rear echelon commandos. They read a manual and think they're Clausewitz. Reisner went back to her closet. She didn't rewrite the report. She sat at the wobbly table and began field stripping the M110 she had signed out from the armory under the pretense of functional testing. She cleaned it with the solvent from Cole's kit, her movements precise and economical. She cleaned the magazines. She calibrated the scope. She observed the slow crawl of the sun as it began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and bruised purple. Dusk, the witching hour, a time of long shadows and tactical ambiguity, the time when predators like to hunt. The first mortar round landed with a deafening crump, 50 meters outside the wire, exactly where the evening patrol was scheduled to make its turn. The explosion was a punctuation mark at the end of a long, tense day. A second followed, then a third, walking a fiery line directly toward the patrol. The radio squawked to life, a chorus of panicked shouts. Chaos erupted in the TOC. The calm, ordered world of metrics and PowerPoint slides evaporated in a blast of adrenaline and fear. Colonel Madsen stood before the main display, a satellite image of the base, his face a mask of disbelief. What's happening? Where is it coming from? Northeast, sir. A communications tech yelled over the din, heavy machine gun fire from the wadi. The patrol is pinned down. Get the QRF moving, Madsen bellowed. Negative, sir. The first mortar hit their staging area. We have casualties. The lights flickered and died, plunging the TOC into the eerie green glow of emergency backup power. The main comms channel filled with static, then a high-pitched squeal. Jamming. Professional. Coordinated. This wasn't a potshot. This was an assault. Lieutenant Evans stood near the colonel, his face ashen. He fumbled with his radio, repeating the colonel's orders into the handset, his voice a thin, reedy echo of his commander's bluster. QRF, move to support. Towers, report contacts. Does anyone have eyes on the enemy? The replies were sporadic and terrified. Tower 2 is suppressed. We can't see anything. They're in the dead space, sir. Right where the voice cut out in a burst of static. Through the cacophony, a new voice broke through on a secondary channel, desperate and raw. It was clipped, professional, but laced with an urgency that sliced through the panic. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Trident 1 actual. We are outside the wire, 2 clicks north of FOB Nightingale. Pinned down, taking effective fire from multiple positions. We have 2 wounded. We need immediate fire support. Nightingale, do you copy? A SEAL team, caught in the open. Madsen stared at the radio as if it had betrayed him. A SEAL team? What the hell are they doing out there? Sir, they must have been on approach when the attack started. An intel officer stammered. Get me a grid, Madsen roared. Get the mortars firing. We don't have a grid, sir. They're using terrain features we can't see. The SEAL leader's voice came again, tighter now, strained. Nightingale, we are taking casualties. We are being bracketed by mortars. If we don't get support now, we are overrun. Help us now. While the command staff flailed, Reisner moved. She didn't run. She walked with a calm, deliberate stride that seemed to bend the chaos around her. No one noticed her leave her small office. No one saw her sling the M110 over her shoulder. The rifle felt like an extension of her own body, its weight familiar and reassuring. She headed not for a bunker, but for the supply depot. Master Sergeant Cole was there, a shotgun in his hands, directing 2 young privates moving ammo cans. He saw her coming, saw the rifle on her back and the look in her eyes. He didn't ask a question. He knew. The roof, he said, pointing to a steel ladder on the side of the building. It's the highest, most stable platform on this base. Flat tar surface. Clear view of the whole northeast sector. It was the exact spot she had identified in her report. I need a radio, she said. Her voice cut through the noise of explosions and alarms. Cole was already moving. He grabbed a PRC-152 from a charging station, checked the battery, and tossed it to her. It's pre-programmed with all the command and tactical frequencies. What else? Magazines. 762-inch. He pointed to a crate. Take what you need. And a spotter, she said, looking him in the eye. Cole hesitated for only a fraction of a second. He looked at the chaos of the base, at the useless shouting coming from the TOC, then back at the quiet, focused woman in front of him. He handed the shotgun to one of the privates. You know what to do. Get that ammo to the line. He turned back to Reisner. Lead the way, Sergeant. They climbed the ladder as explosions rocked the ground below. The roof was a wide, flat expanse littered with vents and air conditioning units. The air was thick with smoke and cordite. From here, Reisner could see the entire battlefield laid out before her. The wadi to the northeast was a dark, menacing scar on the landscape, lit intermittently by the muzzle flashes of enemy machine guns. She saw the tracers, red lines of death, pouring into a small cluster of rocks where the SEAL team had gone to ground. Reisner didn't waste a motion. She dropped to her belly behind a large HVAC unit, the metal providing a solid base and concealment. She deployed the rifle's bipod, the legs clicking into place. Cole lay beside her, pulling out the laser rangefinder from the kit he'd given her. What do you need? He asked, his voice steady. Wind. Range to the primary machine gun nest. The one on that ridge. Reisner was already dialing the magnification on her scope, the world shrinking to a circle of grainy, dusk-lit terrain. Wind is 5 miles per hour, full value from your left, Cole reported, his eye pressed to the rangefinder. Range is 820 meters. Reisner's fingers moved over the elevation turret of her scope. Click, click, click. She made a minute adjustment to the windage knob. She settled the stock into the pocket of her shoulder, her cheek finding the cold, familiar weld. She pulled the radio handset closer to her mouth. She switched frequencies, cutting through the panic chatter until she found the SEAL's channel. Trident 1 actual, this is Overwatch. I have eyes on your position. Talk to me. There was a pause. The sound of automatic fire crackled over the speaker. Who the hell is Overwatch? We don't have an asset with that call sign in the area. The voice was ragged with stress. I'm the asset you've got, Reisner said, her tone flat and calm. I have a 308 solution for your problem. Identify targets or I'll pick them myself. Your choice. Another pause, shorter this time. Desperation was a powerful motivator. Fine. Overwatch, we have a heavy gun on a ridge, northeast of our position. Can you see it? Reisner's crosshairs were already centered on the flickering muzzle flash. I see it. Can you take it out? Reisner didn't answer. Her world had compressed to the space between her eye and the optic. She watched the plume of dust kicked up by the machine gun's bipod. She watched the stream of tracers. She saw the dark shape of the gunner behind the weapon. Her breathing slowed. Inhale. Exhale. She found the natural respiratory pause, the moment of perfect stillness between breaths. The background noise of the battle faded away. The explosions, the shouting, the whine of the jamming signal, it all ceased to exist. There was only the rifle, the target, and the 820 meters of air between them. She pressed the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, a solid, controlled push. The sound was a sharp crack, instantly swallowed by the larger din of the fight. She didn't wait to see the impact. Her eyes were already on the bolt as she worked it, ejecting the spent casing, chambering a new round. The motion was fluid, ingrained by thousands of hours of practice. Through his binoculars, Cole saw it. A tiny geyser of dust and red mist erupted from the machine gun nest. The stream of tracers ceased abruptly. On the radio, the SEAL's voice was a stunned whisper.
Jesus Christ.
Splash. Target down. Overwatch, target is down. How did you? Next target, Reisner said, her voice unchanged. Her eyes were already scanning, hunting. The attack had a structure, a logic. You don't just take out the gunner. You take out the command and control. I see two men with a radio near that cluster of boulders below the ridge. Looks like a command element. We see them too. They've been directing the mortars. Cole. Range, Reisner commanded. 910 meters. Again the clicks of the turret. Again the controlled breath. The world narrowed. She saw one of the men raise a handset to his mouth. She centered the crosshairs on his chest. Inhale. Exhale. Pause. Crack. She was already acquiring the second man before the first had finished falling. He was diving for cover, his face a blur of panic. Her movements were impossibly fast. She led him by 0.5 mil, the calculation instantaneous, intuitive. Crack. 2 men down. The mortar fire, which had been methodically walking its way toward the SEAL's position, became erratic, then stopped altogether. Overwatch. My God. The SEAL leader breathed. Command element is down. Both of them. Confirmed. His voice was no longer panicked. It was filled with a sense of awe. For the next 10 minutes, Reisner and the SEALs worked in a deadly rhythm. They were a team forged in desperation. A voice on the radio and a ghost on a rooftop. Overwatch, I have a sniper flash. Second story of that ruined building. Left side. I see him. Crack. He's gone. Next. Mortar team setting up in the open. Grid. Don't need a grid. I have them. Crack. 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 3 rounds in 5 seconds. 3 bodies fell around a silent mortar tube. She was dismantling the attack piece by piece with chilling precision. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a surgeon, excising the vital organs of the enemy assault. The pressure on the base perimeter began to lessen. The volume of incoming fire dwindled. The enemy, who had attacked with confidence and coordination, was now confused, leaderless, and being hunted by an invisible angel of death. They started to pull back. Figures detached from the shadows and began to retreat into the darkness of the wadi. Reisner didn't let them go. She switched from targeting individuals to targeting their escape. She fired at the ground in front of them, kicking up dust and rock, hurting them, sowing panic. Then, she saw him, a single figure not retreating but moving calmly toward a better position, directing the withdrawal. He carried a rifle, but he moved with an authority the others lacked. The enemy commander. Cole. Range on the man by the lone acacia tree. 1,050 meters. That's a long shot, Anna. It was the first time he'd used her name. The formality had been burned away by the intensity of the moment. The wind has died down, she murmured, more to herself than to him. Her fingers danced over the turrets, a final, delicate calculation of distance, humidity, and the subtle rotation of the earth. This was a shot that existed at the very edge of the weapon's capability, a shot that required not just skill but a kind of faith. She settled in. The world became a pinprick of light. The man turned, and for a fraction of a second, his face was illuminated by a distant burning vehicle. She saw the surprise in his eyes as the bullet, which had been traveling for over a second, found him. He collapsed in a heap, and with him, the last vestiges of the enemy's will to fight broke completely. The retreat became a rout. Silence began to reclaim the battlefield. The only sounds were the crackle of fires, the distant groan of stressed metal, and the shouts of medics moving toward the wounded. On the radio, the SEAL leader's voice was hoarse. Overwatch. Status of enemy forces. They're broken, Reisner replied, her voice still a low monotone. She was already pulling back from the scope, the intensity receding from her eyes. They're in full retreat. We owe you. We owe you big. I don't know who you are, but you saved our asses. That was the best damn shooting I've ever witnessed. Nightingale Command, we need a name. Who is Overwatch? The question hung in the sudden quiet of the TOC. Colonel Madsen stood frozen, his face pale and slack. His entire world, his carefully constructed reality of metrics and stability, had been shattered in the space of 30 minutes. He had failed. His command had frozen. His base had nearly been overrun. And some unknown sergeant had saved it all from a rooftop. He had no answer. Lieutenant Evans stared at the comms console, his mouth slightly agape. Master Sergeant Cole keyed his handset from the rooftop. His voice was gravelly, but clear and steady as a rock. That would be Sergeant Reisner, sir. She's here from Logistics Command, conducting a range safety inspection. The silence on the net was profound. The SEAL leader came back, his voice thick with disbelief. A range safety inspector? You're telling me a logistics sergeant just did that? Before anyone could answer, a new voice cut in. It was crisp, authoritative, and digitally clear, patched in from a command center half a world away. Stand by, Trident 1. We're cross-referencing call sign Overwatch. The call sign is inactive but reserved a pause. The faint click of keys. Cross-referencing personnel files for FOB Nightingale. Stand by. Every person in the TOC held their breath. Madsen looked like he was going to be sick. The voice from on high returned, and it carried a weight that flattened all other authority in the room. Call sign Overwatch is registered to Gunnery Sergeant Anna Reisner, United States Marine Corps, currently on detached duty from her permanent post as Chief Instructor for the Advanced Sniper and Reconnaissance School, Quantico. Colonel Madsen, according to this file, her temporary assignment to your FOB was not for a simple inspection. It was a threat assessment validation, ordered by SOCOM Command, based on intelligence you yourself flagged as unverified atmospherics. The revelation landed with the force of a physical blow. Gunnery Sergeant, Chief Instructor. She hadn't just read the manual on advanced marksmanship. She had written it. The dismissive looks, the condescending lectures from Lieutenant Evans, the colonel's arrogant dismissal of her report. It all curdled into a thick, choking sludge of humiliation. The SEAL leader's voice came over the radio, all traces of doubt gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated professional respect. Gunny, it's an honor. Trident 1 owes you a life debt. You ever need anything, you call us. Anything. Just doing my job, Trident 1, Reisner's voice replied, as flat and unassuming as ever. Stay safe. She clicked off the radio. The battle was over. Her part in it was done. She and Cole climbed down from the roof in silence. The base was a hive of activity now, but it was organized. Medics were treating the wounded. Teams were shoring up defenses. The near disaster had shocked the system back to life. Reisner walked past the TOC. The flap was open, and she could see Colonel Madsen inside. He wasn't shouting anymore. He was slumped in a chair, his head in his hands. Lieutenant Evans saw her pass and quickly looked away, his face burning with shame. He now understood that he had been lecturing a master on the basics of her craft. She didn't go to the mess hall for the hot meal being served. She didn't go to the debriefing she knew was about to start. She went back to her small, windowless room, the closet at the back of the supply depot. The air was still stale, the metal chair still wobbled. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. She laid the M110 on her cot. Under the single, humming fluorescent bulb, she began to clean it. Her movements were a ritual, a form of meditation. The scent of carbon and solvent filled the tiny space. She broke the weapon down to its component parts, cleaning each piece with a small brush and a soft cloth. The bolt carrier group, the firing pin, the bore of the barrel. It wasn't a trophy. It was a tool, and a professional always maintained her tools. It was a way of bringing herself back. Back from that place of intense, cold focus. Back from the space between breaths where life and death were decided. She worked until the rifle was immaculate, every trace of the battle erased from its surfaces. She reassembled it with the same practiced efficiency, the metallic clicks echoing in the quiet room. Her report, the one the colonel had thrown back at her, was still on the table. She picked it up and added a 3-page after-action addendum. It was written in the same dry, technical prose. It detailed the enemy's tactics, the points of failure in the base's defense, and the exact sequence of shots she had taken, including range, wind calls, and results. There was no emotion in it. No triumph. It was data, cold, hard, and undeniable. She changed out of her dusty uniform, the fabric stiff with sweat and grime. As she pulled her clean shirt over her head, the thin silver chain around her neck swung free. 2 small, stamped pieces of metal caught the light. Dog tags. Reisner, A, USMC. A simple name, a simple piece of identification. It was all anyone needed to know. She finished packing her duffel bag. Her work here was done. Another base, another problem, awaited. She would leave in the morning, as quietly as she had arrived. She would leave behind a humbled colonel, a wiser lieutenant, and a base that now understood the vast, deadly difference between a readiness metric on a slide and the quiet, lethal competence of a true professional. Her legacy wouldn't be in a citation or a medal. It would be in the hushed stories told by the survivors, a legend whispered on the night watch about the logistics sergeant who, for one violent, desperate hour, had become their overwatch.